Good morning and welcome. My name is Todd Copeland and I am the General Manager for Community Futures Middlesex. Thank you for coming out to attend this webinar. And what I'm going to do first is I'm going to give just a quick general introduction to Community Futures Middlesex and who we are. And I just have to get it up on my screen. So Community Futures Middlesex, with the financial assistance of FedDev Ontario, we offer a few key programming elements to small businesses and entrepreneurs within Middlesex County. We offer business consulting and counseling, community economic development support, small business financing, and workshops and training. And this is an example of a workshop that we put on behalf of our target clients. So those target clients, as I mentioned, are entrepreneurs, small business owners, revenue generating nonprofits, and social enterprises. And we're here to support all these clients, all within the County of Middlesex, excluding the City of London. So just to briefly highlight the loans and financing that we do provide, we provide microloans and small business loans up to $300,000. And we're also currently a delivery agent for the Regional Relief and Recovery Fund from the federal government, which is loans that are intended to support small businesses impacted by COVID-19. And some of the details there are presented in terms of the program. So it's a loan of up to $40,000, 0% interest, no payments to the end of December 2022. And what's unique about that program is that up to 25% could be forgivable if 75% is paid back before that time period. This is just a client testimonial around how the Regional Relief and Recovery Fund can be used to support the needs of our clients. I encourage you to visit the website where we've got some additional information in terms of this program and how it can be utilized. So we're all about measuring our community impact. Just to highlight, our last year. So this is an example of how we've had impact within the communities we serve in the last year. So 2019, in terms of the amount of money that we've invested into small businesses, the number of businesses and entrepreneurs that we supported, and the number of community partners that we've engaged, and also some of the other metrics around number of workshops and events that we've hosted. Our loan portfolio, we have a diverse loan portfolio across a variety of different industry sectors. We get measured on both our inclusiveness and innovative clients that we serve based on government priorities. And the bottom part of this slide demonstrates the distribution of our loan clients across Middlesex County. So the 7 different municipalities that we serve. And I guess the key point here is that we do have money to invest in small businesses and entrepreneurs. I'll just highlight that we did go through an initiative in the last year to work on the development and relaunch of our website, which we did at the end of July, with the intent of sort of it serving as a primary source of information and for our clients, where you'll find information on our programs and resources also to help you succeed as a small business owner. The last development in the last year that I want to highlight is we've physically relocated our offices in the midst of COVID. We moved into new offices in mid to late April, located on the main street of Ilderton in Middlesex County, which is central. And we also offer our programs and services in partnerships with others to be able to provide them locally within other municipalities. Our offices are closed to the public, continue to remain closed to the public at this point, but we are moving towards being open to meeting in person by appointment only if needed. So there's our contact information. Encourage you to call us, email us. Is the info@cfmiddlesex.ca is the best email. We also do have an active social media presence, and there's lots of information out there to get further information on who we are and what we do. But you know, this morning the focus is the presentation, which is part of the workshop series that we're in the process of rolling out from now until the end of the fiscal year, or March. And I'm happy to be joined this morning by Therese Van Es, who's the Chief People Leader for HR Ladder Solutions. Therese has over 25 years experience in as a human resource professional, working across a variety of different industry sectors. I first met Therese, I think it was less than a year ago. I think it was actually my first week on the job as GM in November of 2019, where he provided a topic on a similar a workshop session in person at our offices on a similar topic, which was digital recruitment structure, I guess, for employers. I guess none of us would have been anticipated, I guess, COVID-19 and the impact it's had on our lives, the push to adoption of digital technologies, and the impact both personally and in our professional lives. And so I think, you know, human resources and the combination of which is all about people and the, you know, the impact of technology, you know, I'm definitely interested in Theresa's presentation and perspective and how it's been, you know, updated as a result of COVID, and how we can, you know, make use of this digital technology to only support our recruitment efforts, but also retain our existing employees in their roles. So I'm going to transition and hand this presentation over to Therese. And thank you, Therese, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Todd. I'm really happy to be here again today. I am always happy to be able to lend a hand to small businesses. We ourselves at Ladder HR Solution are a small business. So anytime I get a chance to talk with small businesses and help them out, it's right in my bailiwick, right? I'm going to share my screen for a moment. Now, we tried this earlier, and we'll see what happens. Make sure that I can get the right version of the document. Look at that, I went right back there. Let's see what happens when I do this. Aha, there we go. Todd, can you see the actual slide presentation without all the PowerPoint paraphernalia around it?
Yes, I can. Actually, it's not up on my screen yet. Here, just one second. I can see it on my laptop, Therese. Okay. Maybe if we can get the participants just to give a thumbs up if they can. Okay.
Perfect.
Well, thank you, Ken. Yeah.
Thank you, Ken. All right. So my name is Therese. I'm with Ladder HR Solutions. Like Todd said, I have been doing this for a lot of years, more years than I care to admit sometimes. I started actually recruiting, I'm going to say right around 1987 would have been the first time I recruited somebody, and I started and it, you know, it was very manual at the time. It was paper-based. So what I've done is that moving through my career from recruitment into human resources. My background is finance and accounting. So there's always been a recruitment and a retention piece to the role that I've been in the last little while. So Ladder HR Solutions is now a firm of 6 people, and we specialize in small businesses specifically. So we get it, you know. Even when I have to recruit to bring another person onto my team, I, again, am sitting in the small business owner seat. So I understand the challenges, I understand the financial constrictions, I understand everything that goes along with building a small business from a human resources and a recruitment perspective. So I hope you're going to get something out of this today. Excuse me for a second. Of course, wouldn't you know it, I have seasonal allergies. I hope I can provide some kind of information. If I'm running too quickly, or if you have a question, please either put up your hand or unmute yourself and wave at me, something like that. And we will make sure that we get your question answered throughout. If it's something that's not urgent, type it into the box. Todd will keep an eye on it, like he mentioned, and he'll bring them up at either when I pause, which does happen occasionally, or at the end to make sure that we get it all. I'll get all your questions answered. So what are we going to talk about today? So you're clearly here because you need to understand digital recruitment. We all do these days with COVID going on. So we're going to look at how to build and establish a digital recruitment strategy that suits your business. We're going to look at which digital platforms businesses should be on to attract employees. We're going to go into what retaining employees looks like these days and how to actually attract people to your company. So the burning question number one is how to hire successful employees who can contribute to your success and add value to your culture. It's always a fairly burning question for everybody, and rightfully so, because here is our reality. The statistics show that 20% of the time you get hiring completely wrong. 20% of the time you get hiring completely right and you've got your superstar employee. But 60% of the time you get an okay employee. So it's really critical that we think about what we're doing in the hiring process. So my question to you is, for a quick second, take a look around your employee population, and do these stats ring true to you? 20% of your people are the absolute best. 20% of the time you've had to rehire, but most of the time you've got good people who are able to get the job done. It's interesting that it rings true in most organizations. So that leads us on to burning question number two that we're going to answer, which is, what are the most important factors in the hiring process that has so many variables and can take a long time? Because the hiring process had a lot of variables to start with, we added a second level of complexity as soon as COVID came on board, right? So here's what happened. We were in a full employment market. It was difficult to get people in the door, let alone good people. We were starting to have to pull from other organizations. And then all of a sudden, bam, COVID brought everything to a stop. But that was temporary. Within a few months, most of us are back up and running at some level, or immediately people transitioned their businesses to working from home and then continued to hire people that they may not even have met by now because they've hired them into their own workplaces to work remotely. And at some point, I'm sure there will be a meeting, or maybe there already has been a meeting, but it's been an interesting transition for people. The other piece that's happening in our environment has nothing to do with COVID, but has everything to do with the generations of people that are out there. The younger population, meaning the Gen Z, which is the newest generation coming into our workforce, and the Gen Y, or the millennials, they require speed in the hiring process. So because we're still in an employee market, yes, we've lost a lot of jobs. Yes, the unemployment rate has gone up. But let me tell you, when you're trying to hire somebody right now, if you're taking too long in your hiring process, that particular individual goes out the door to another organization. It is important. The speed of the process becomes very important. We're going to move on to the agenda. So how do you actually build and establish a digital recruitment strategy that suits your business? There are so many different platforms out there and so many ways to build digital recruitment strategies. You need to make sure that whatever you're doing makes sense for you. And that's often we miss that point. Sometimes, we take a training session like this and we think of all, Teresa's going to show me all these great things going on, or things going on out in the digital sphere that they could get employees in. You need to make sure it's relevant to your particular organization. If it's not relevant to your organization, it's still not going to help. So we'll work through what might be relevant and what might not be. So overall, what we need to do in a digital recruitment strategy is to create and share relevant content. Whether it's a job, it's a job ad, whether it's other things, relevant content must be shared in the digital world in order to entice people to even look at your sites. So how do you do that? Well, you have a solid social media strategy and a solid social media recruitment strategy. Then we need to go on and prioritize the candidate experience. We'll talk about what that means in just a few moments. In the midst of all this, you're building your reputation still. And then you need to design your digital candidate selection process. You create a feedback loop, you pick the right tools, you track your metrics, and you be consistent across all your recruitment funnels. That this sounds really complex, it's really not. What happens when you're actually working through it is that you'll find that each step is fairly simple to do with your organization in mind. So first, we're going to talk about creating and sharing digital relevant content. So you need to refine your messaging. So now what we're talking about is, what does your content look like, and does it appeal to the population that you're trying to attract? So first, you need to understand who your ideal candidates are and what types of people they are, what age bracket are they in, what are they currently doing, where are they getting their news from, where are they getting their job ads from. And you need to make sure that your messaging across your social media platforms will start to engage those people. So for example, if we are Enterprise Rent-A-Car hires, I'm going to say, predominantly university graduates. So we want to make sure that we're on the social spaces that university graduates are on. So Facebook has gone out the door for a lot of the younger crowd. The average Facebook user is in their 50s now. The average age of a Facebook user is in their 50s. You talk to all the kids and they're on Insta. They call it Insta when we're referring to Instagram. So you need to build your presence on whatever level, on whichever platform is relevant to the level of employee you want to hire. So there are many different platforms, and we'll talk about them in a little bit, and we'll talk about who they hire, who they're more geared towards. So you identify who your ideal candidate is, and that gives you an example of where to share your content. But you definitely want to have an up-to-date company website. So what happens now is people will learn about you through whatever digital platform they're following. So whether they're following Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn, or just your YouTube channel, or just going to your website. Regardless of where they're coming from, your company website needs to be relevant. It needs to be modern. If it's not relevant, it's not modern, people shy away from it these days. Your external blogs, so anytime that you're writing a blog, you're posting it on your website, you're posting it on LinkedIn, you're posting it maybe to any association that you work with, all needs to be relevant. Your social media handles need to be clear. So if your company is ABC Restoration, you certainly don't want your social media handle to be something like Restoring for Fun. Your social media handle needs to be 123 Restoration or something like that. If you have an email newsletter, we still get a lot of traction from email newsletters. And what they do is, when you talk to the world about what you do and the fact that you're hiring, they get shared out. So they're important to have on board as well. I have a little video here on how to make a great recruitment video. We're not going to watch it right now. We'll come back to this because it's really from the point of making a video. And I see we don't have a lot of people on board right now, and that's fine and lovely, but we'll talk later on to see if this is relevant to you, and if you want to watch it, we'll give it a go. It's really the tactics to making a video is what it shows you, how to use your phone and what types of things to put in a video. So that's why I think right now we'll take it out of this context and we'll bring it back later if there's interest. You need to have a solid social media recruiting strategy. If you don't already have a social media presence, really needs to change, because the stats speak for themselves. They see that employers who start using social media to hire see a 49% improvement in candidate quality, and you see increased movement to your website. So once you have your profiles up and running, you publish informative posts and videos and engage in discussions with potential candidates. So what does that mean, right? What does that mean, informative posts and videos? You're creating posts that will be relevant to the age group of the audience that you're trying to bring in the door. More often than not right now, videos is where it's at. So whether you're uploading YouTubes or whether you're creating videos and uploading to your social media, it's critical to engage people. The attention span of people in general is reducing by the year. And so right now you have less than 7 seconds to catch somebody's attention. Videos do that. They're snappy, they're quick, right? Then it's really key, once you have somebody who's who's liking your video or liking your post is to engage in discussion with them. And what does that look like? Hey, Joe, I see you liked our post. What was it that caught your eye? Just something that's catchy enough that they're going to answer you without going deep. I mean, you're not going to go deep into an interview over your social media site. But the reason that you're doing this is you want to get a flavor for this person, right? You want to understand why they're interested, what caught their eye, what is it about your company. And so if you can engage in that kind of conversation, you can gauge whether that's somebody who, when they submit their resume to you, is going to be somebody that you actually want to chat with. Over time, you'll start to notice which networks and which networks work best for you and the types of posts that work best for you. So at the beginning, you're in this testing phase. We suggest, publishing your job postings to LinkedIn. LinkedIn job postings are expensive. They're about $600 for single posting. So if you're a small business and you're looking to hire a professional, absolutely go to LinkedIn. If you're a small business and you're looking to hire somebody who's professional, but they're in your region, you go to Nighthunter, nighthunter.com. That's the best sort of regional posting site. Using videos to showcase employee testimonials on your site, on your career site, would be very helpful. And what does that mean? That means that you have a current employee who loves working for you. You interview them. And you don't need a lot of technology for this. You just need your phone. You interview them on your phone. You interview them on your phone. You create a YouTube channel. You upload them on YouTube. You put the link back onto your Facebook or onto your LinkedIn or onto your Instagram, wherever you need it. You need to be tweeting out information or communicating information about the fun things that happen at your organization, right? So if you have company awards or event banquets, and right now, hopefully if you're having them, they're outside and socially distanced, right? But if you have, one company I worked with, we had really cool awards like Fashion Designer of the Year. We were an engineering firm. There were no fashion designers, but it didn't matter. Or we had Most Improved Player and Best Rookie of the Year, and we have Innovation Award winner. So we created an award system because we're blending when you're working on social media and when you're putting out that kind of solid. When you want to put out solid social media recruiting tactics, you want to make sure that people understand what the culture is at your organization. So when you're establishing your presence on Facebook, when you're tweeting out, you're making sure that your relevant culture is out there. So does that mean you should create some sort of program just to push it out? No, absolutely not. Because you want to put out an authentic view of who you are as an organization. And that's what's critical, the authentic view. Because if you don't have an authentic portrayal of yourself as an organization, people will apply that will not match your culture. When you get mismatches of culture, you often get turnover in your organization. So you want to make sure that, again, the people coming in are aligned with your culture. The next thing that we're going to talk about, in just a moment, I have something going on my screen here. Technology is funny sometimes. I just need to minimize the distraction. Thank you. Is to prioritize the candidate experience. So we talked about at the beginning that candidates these days have a shorter attention span. We're in a really tight hiring market, even though there's high unemployment. It's very strange. But for the types of positions most of us are looking for, it's difficult to get candidates. So we want to make sure that the candidate experience is prioritized in your life. So when you're going to put a posting out there, when people are replying, jump on that right away. So how do you enhance the candidate experience? You communicate with the applicants as clearly and regularly as possible. You provide updates about the status of their applications, and you stick to your hiring timeline. Sometimes that is not, it's not easy sticking to your hiring timeline. It's possible, and I've just gone through this, unfortunately, with a client whereby we did not attract the candidate that we wanted. So now we've gone back out and we're starting all over again. So it's sometimes difficult. But if you're telling candidates, if you interview a candidate and you say, I will get back to you in 3 days, and then something happens in your life, in your work life, that you can't get back to them, have somebody else call them. Just do something, send them a quick email. You know, I mentioned I would get back to you in 3 days. I apologize, but we don't have an answer at this time. I will check back, or I'll let you know in a month or in a week or whatever it is that makes reasonable sense to you at that time. But the minute you ghost someone, even, and that's what employees feel, candidates feel like. They feel like they're being ghosted if you're not talking to them regularly. So you need to find a way to communicate with them. Through the application process is great. Oftentimes now I find that candidates would like texts rather than emails. So that's what I do. I'll text a candidate. Hi, thanks for coming in today. As mentioned, I'll get back to you in 3 days. 3 days later, if I can't get back to them, I text them again. Mentioned I'd get back to you. Unfortunately, we don't have an answer at this time. Or I mentioned I'd get back to you. Unfortunately, we decided to go another direction. There were a number of highly qualified candidates and we picked somebody else. Whatever it is that you have to communicate to make sure the communication experience continues. If you're not going to hire that candidate, please communicate with them, because here's what's happening on social media. There are sites out there. There's a site called, aside from Glassdoor, there's another site as well, where either employees or candidates will go on and type about their experience. So, and job seekers are much more savvy in a digital world than we were even 5 years ago, where they're going to Google the companies they want to work for. And you probably have somebody talking about you someplace out there right now. And it might be positive, might be negative, who knows, but we really need to control that message that goes out there. The way to control the message is to deliver what we say we're going to deliver. So if we say we're going to contact a candidate in 3 days, we contact a candidate in 3 days. That also helps to build rapport. And as we build a rapport with the candidate, they might not be the right fit for this current role, but you never know, as you expand, you may want to call that candidate back again. And you certainly don't want to be in a position where you ghosted the candidate after the first interview, and calling them back would be very awkward. The candidate pool is shrinking. It's the most bizarre thing I've seen in a long time, but that's what's happening. The other piece that employers need to be wary of is that almost all candidates we're doing a lot more work on our phones than we are our computers and our laptops these days. So candidates are looking towards their phones for the information. And we know that. So 90% of job seekers think mobile devices play a critical role in the job hunt, but only 20% of employers have career sites optimized for mobile. And it's not difficult to optimize. I shouldn't say that. I'm not a techie. I'm not going to tell you it's not difficult. I'm going to say that I'm going through the website recreation process right now. And there are so many software products out there that you can use right now that you just click a button and it optimizes it for mobile. So if you're doing your own website, and again, we're talking to small businesses here, it's possible that some of you are doing your own websites, make sure that you use a website builder that has an automatic mobile phone application modifier. I don't even know what it's called, but anyhow, it's out there. You can do that. This is where we find there's a really big disconnect, because and this is where smaller companies who have been around for a while and have not looked at their website lately need to become relevant to the job seeker. If you don't become relevant to the job seeker, you're not going to have enough job seekers. So you need to keep job seekers informed, you need to be relevant, and you need to be on top of your game when it comes to social media. And that's how you start to build your reputation. So your employee culture, your employee brand, your corporate brand, and your reputation all work hand in hand. They all work together. It's important then to develop and maintain a reputation for being a top-notch employer. Some of the things you're going to be looking at in today's job market is, the ability to work from home. I know many companies have brought people back into the office. Here at Ladder HR, we brought people back into the office. That doesn't mean they're here every day. They have the option to work from the office or to work from home. It's the ability to be flexible with individuals with families is almost goes without saying these days. And then brand yourself as an employee that will take some time and effort. Branding yourself as an employer will take time and effort, but it is worth it in the end. Your employee brand, your employer and employee brand, your employee brand is there whether you think you're building one or not. And your culture is there whether you think you're building it or not, because your employees will behave based on how you behave towards them. So here at Ladder HR, we pride ourselves in having a flexible work environment. So I was chatting with somebody on the team this morning, and she was chatting with her husband and a friend of theirs, and that means the Ladder HR brand that's going out right now, because we are very flexible with everybody, is that yes, of course I can do that. Of course there's trust there. Of course there's flexibility there. It's a great place to work. It is important. You don't really, the control that you have over this is simply how you treat your employees. That's it. Because what goes out from your employees is what's going to be seen as your culture and your employee brand. You have complete control based on how you treat your employees, the types of policies and processes you have in place in your organization around the employees, right? So if you're that employer who's very regimented and need everybody in the office, that's fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It doesn't mean you're a bad employer. It means you need to attract people who are okay with that kind of environment. So, and that's the information that will come out through your employee population. So companies with strong employer brands experience a 50% reduction in cost per hire. And why is that? It's because people are clamoring to get in the door. And you get 50% more qualified applicants. Now that sounds silly because you think you're going to put a job ad out there and you're going to get qualified applicants. Absolutely, that's going to happen. But actually what's going to happen is you're going to put the job ad out there and 50% of your applicants will not be qualified to start with. Or they'll be from overseas with no experience in your industry. Or you're looking for a managerial position and somebody's created some bot and just applies to everything. It costs you your time to go through and even read the titles of the resumes to ensure that they're people you want to talk to, or maybe they're not. So it is important then to see that, you know, if you get 50% more qualified applicants just by having a strong employer brand, it's something you know you should be looking at. Excuse me while I take a quick drink. So you'll design a digital candidate selection process. So what does that mean? It means you're going to create a process that's a positive experience for the recruiters, the person recruiting on your team, and the candidates. This means that you're going to be completely transparent with candidates, and it means you're going to do it electronically. So the first thing is to put out your job ad. You do that electronically. But what about people replying to the ads? I know that most of the employers I work with, we implement a no dropping off policy. So you must reply through either the website or the applicant tracking system or an email that we have provided to you. The reason for that is that most jobs require some sort of digital experience with finesse. And also it's much, much easier to track your applicants if they're coming in electronically than if they're coming in by paper. Then the next piece is assessing the applicants to ensure they have the right skills to do the job. We do that initially, generally, with a phone screen. It takes about 10 minutes. Generally we ask just a few questions and we're assessing things like communication skill. Can they talk to you on the phone? Do you understand them? And I'm not talking about accents. Accents are perfectly acceptable, but it's the method in which they communicate. Can you understand that? Are they communicating straightforwardly? We're looking for things like, we ask basic questions like, do they actually have the skills and the ability to do the job? So if you need a CNC person, you can ask the question, how many years have you been working on this particular CNC machine? Do you have experience troubleshooting it? What are the projects that you've done on it? To get a good understanding of whether they can do the job. And then the last thing that generally I will ask is their salary requirements. I ask the salary requirements right up front. Oftentimes people will try to dodge that question. When they dodge it, I say something like, you're a professional in your field, you know what you're worth. We have a budget in mind. I'd like to know where you are on this scale, and if you have to, just give me a range. And that way we'll know whether you're in the range or not, whether to move forward or not. So what happens then, the candidates who want to dodge will always want to dodge. That's fine. You can choose to interview them in person or by video or not. That's up to you. But oftentimes the superstar candidates will say, you know what, well, I've been doing this for 15 years, and this is the level of experience I have, and this is what I'm making now, and I won't move unless you give me this much money. Also, when you do a quick phone screen, you can provide genuine insight into your company's culture. You can give the candidate an idea up front, the availability up front to ask a question. And you can talk about what the job actually is. It's really difficult to get the essence of a job on paper. You can get the tasks and the responsibilities on paper. Difficult to get the essence of the job on paper. Whatever process you're building, it needs to be simple and easy to navigate so that everybody can just glide through the recruitment process easily. There's examples of digital interview software, so you can use Zoom like we're using today. You can send pre-screening questions and have them send them back to you in an email. That's helpful if you are hiring a front desk person. The reason for that, you want to make sure that your front desk person, who is your primary point of contact with probably a lot of your clients or potential customers, has the ability to write email. You could do a Teams meeting. You could do Skype. There is software out there that allows individuals to do a digital interview. So what does that mean? That means you can send them, if you're looking for somebody who has high proficiency in some type of, in digital anything, you can send them a list of questions and ask them to video themselves asking the questions and then send you that file. There's also software out there that does it for you. And then it's really important to create a feedback loop. So what does that mean? That means ask the candidates how the recruitment process went for them. Once they're hired, you ask them. There's interesting information that comes out of these feedback loops. Oftentimes we get something like, the process was too slow. You know, I had 2 other offers and I was waiting for you guys. That's something that will come out of it. Somebody else might say the technology is too difficult to use. Somebody else might say the process was perfect for me. It was awesome. Thank you. Once you have all these comments and your opinions, you analyze them, you look at how you can improve and refine your strategy. And you do this every time. You do this with every new hire. You don't generally do it with people that you haven't hired. They're generally not that happy to be able to chat with you about your process after the fact. So then with your next batch of recruits, you relaunch the entire process all over again. I see somebody else has entered the waiting room. I'm just going to admit them. There we go. All right. So now we're going to move forward and we're going to talk about, oh, we're not having technology issues. Oh dear. Oh, there we go. All right. So when we're talking digital recruitment across the board, it's more than just the strategy about how you're going to get your candidates in the door. It's more than just where you're going to recruit, which sites you're going to use. It's picking the tools that will help you during the recruitment process. So your digital recruitment strategy is only as good as the tools you use. So you need to look at the software you're going to use. You need to develop and then refine your current methods. Look at your hiring requirements and then look at what tools might align with your hiring requirements. So for example, if you're going to hire a receptionist, these people need phone skills. Why not do a phone interview? If you're going, and we already mentioned, if you need somebody with digital proficiency, send them a list of questions. Ask them to send you a video. And then once you're through the interview, there are also other types of tools you can use that are digital to help you make the right decisions. There are personality profiling tools, there are cognitive behavior tools, and we're just going to go through a couple of them right here, right now. There's a tool called the DISC. The DISC assessment is it's a non-judgmental tool used to talk about, for you to understand candidates' behavioral proficiencies. So when you look at the DISC model, we're looking for traits under the dominance, the influence, the steadiness, and the conscientiousness areas. So under the dominance area, for example, you can determine whether this candidate is going to be direct, is going to be firm, strong-willed, forceful, and results-oriented. You can look at the influence piece and think, are they outgoing? Are they going to be enthusiastic? Are they optimistic? Are they high-spirited? Are they lively? So you can understand now if you're providing this type of assessment to individuals, you're going to get a much better feel for them than just by doing what COVID has us doing now, which is Zoom interviews and phone interviews and Skype interviews and all of that. This dives a little bit deeper into the personality of the person and provides behaviors that they're likely to display in your organization. What happens in the DISC, for example, is people will come out with, you'll come out with dominance in one of these areas or maybe two of these areas. So for myself, I am what's called a high I. I'm a high influencer. Every time I take the DISC, I have extremely high tendencies with outgoingness, and I'm generally enthusiastic, I'm optimistic, I'm high-spirited, I'm lively, I'm the Energizer Bunny, they tell me, but I'm also followed very closely by dominance. I am also strong-willed and forceful and results-oriented. This is what the DISC tells me about me. So you can understand how important that would be to learn about the people coming in the door. But that's just one type of model. The DISC is relatively inexpensive. It's around $100 per candidate. You generally would have to have somebody who's well-versed in identifying, in being able to read it for you. So that's the DISC. Another one of the tools is the personality dimensions. So really what it does, it's a little more complex than the DISC, it's a little more expensive, but it translates complex personality theory into everyday language. So it creates a framework for your understanding. Again, you go through a series of questions and you end up being predominantly one of these colors, the four colors, the blue, green, gold, or orange. And this one looks at, rather than behaviors, it looks at tendencies. So we've moved from behaviors to tendencies and personality theories. So somebody who's gold, for example, would be very strong at planning and organizing. They would be very caring and supportive. They're cooperative and loyal. Where somebody who's green is innovative and trustworthy and independent and very logical. So you can see the tendencies that we have there, the strengths and the tendencies of the four personality dimensions. Again, depending on what it is you're looking for in employees, you may want to bring one of these tools in. I think the personality dimensions is in and around $300, not 100% sure on that. And then the Profiles XT is a different type of tool. This one is more of a cognitive assessment, and it's built for job matching. So what does that mean? That means that you create, the Profiles XT people have thousands and thousands of jobs in their database. So if I want a customer service person, I would say to them, I'd like to do a profile on a customer service person and use your comparative. So they've already got the profile that they've done on probably 10,000 customer service people, and they understand what profile they're looking for. The candidate would fill out this profile, and this piece here, sorry about that, the learning index, the verbal skill, the verbal reasoning, the numerical ability, and the numeric reasoning. You see where the dark boxes are. So for learning index, there are dark boxes on 5, 6, and 7. The ideal candidate for this particular profile will be a 6 or also a 5 and a 7 will score in that same area when they are completing the profiles. If we look at verbal skills, for example, the ideal candidate will score at 5, 6, or 7, but this particular candidate has scored as a 3. So what this type of profile tool will do is it will then give you questions to ask that candidate to see if they can move from 3 to 6 or 5 with some guidance, maybe not a ton of work, but some guidance. So and then again, if we look at numeric reasoning, the ideal candidate has a 5, 6, or 7, but this particular candidate has scored it. Sorry, the ideal candidate is a 4, 5, or 6, and this particular candidate has scored as a 7. So this candidate's numerical reasoning skills are slightly more elevated than what we require. So maybe that candidate is going to be a little bit bored on this job. Who knows? So these are the types of things that the Profile XT looks at. Completely different again in what it's measuring and how it's measuring, but becoming much more critical, all three of these profiling tools, much more critical in the digital era of recruiting.
Therese, quick question for you, just on that. As an employer, if you're investing in, you go through your selection process and you have it down to, 1 or 2 candidates, or more broadly, I guess you could decide to invest in, applying these types of tools on those candidates. Is it becoming a trend to actually, as an employer that's seeking job candidates, to some of them sharing that information back to a candidate as a part of the engagement process, or is it sort of an internal thing?
No, so there's a couple of things around that, Todd. That's a really great question. The first thing is most of the time we don't share it back until the candidate is hired. However, if as part of the recruitment process, you're asking somebody to do this and they ask for the results, we must share them.
Okay.
So it's two-pronged, right? We generally don't share them back. We do once they're hired. We talk about them. If we're using this particular tool globally as an organization. So for example, if you're using the DISC, we can chat with them about their DISC results and how they compare to their boss's results and how that matches well in areas where the boss and the DISC might want to, the leader and the employee may want to have conversations. So we can do that. But definitely if the candidate asks for the results, we must send them.
Okay, no, that answers my question. And then I guess the other question about these things is when you put candidates through a recruitment process and you get to the point, and a lot of times you might have a gut feeling, right? Like this is the candidate. This is if somebody might stick out really hard. Is this just another tool, I guess, or an asset that helps you kind of how much weight do you put on this type of personality?
Okay. That's a really great question. And the answer is a little bit more complex than that, because it all depends on your overall recruitment strategy and your overall company culture. Some companies will rely on these fairly exclusively because they're all built with scientific background. So some companies will say, well, if they get this, this, and this on the DISC, or if they show up this way in the profiles XT, and as long as we like them, we'll hire them. Other organizations will use them to back up what they thought happened during the recruitment process. And that's where I think they belong. I think that you have your interview. You certainly don't send these to everybody because they are expensive, they're out of pocket. And if you have somebody you want to hire, you send them the link, they do their profile, and then it either hopefully they're used to confirm what you thought about that particular employee. Sometimes what happens is the profile comes back completely differently.
Right.
When that happens, you need to interview the employee again.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good answer. I know it can be complex, right? But that's great. Thank you.
So Todd, what can you see on my screen right now?
I am seeing the slide. It's not in slide presentation mode, like not full screen.
Right. Somehow or another it popped out of there. Interesting. I don't know what happened, but it popped out of there. So but I didn't know if it had just popped out of there for me or if everybody was seeing the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I think, so now you're back to full slide.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. So these are digital helpers in your recruitment arsenal, right? They're wonderful. They're very well tested. The three that I've showed you have been in existence for 20 years plus. So they're well tested. There's psychometric information in behind them and psychological information in behind them. And I don't know about you, but when I've done these tools, they're bang on. Like for the most, they're 95% accurate. So you can really learn a lot from using some type of profiling tool for your candidates. Okay. When you're recruiting, whether digitally or otherwise, it's important that we measure our success. And measuring our success is more than, yay, we got the right candidate, woohoo! It's more than that. It's looking at how many resumes did it take you to get that candidate? How much money did you spend to get that candidate? How long did it take to get that candidate? Where did that candidate come from? Did they come from Facebook? Did they come from LinkedIn? Did they come from Night Hunter, which, like I mentioned earlier, is a very regional, very effective tool. Because what happens is you don't want to repeat your mistakes. So if you find you're posting on Facebook, but you're getting all your candidates from Night Hunter, why spend time on Facebook, right? Doesn't make sense. So your aim is to improve the quality of your new hires. It's to improve the speed at which you get your new hires and to decrease your cost. That's what you're really looking to do in the long run or in the short run. Once you've gone through the cycle once or twice, you can start to set targets for your recruitment strategy. You can say, okay, I'm going to spend $100 on a LinkedIn ad, and I'm going to spend my time over here on creating these kind of posts to engage these kind of potential candidates. And then we tweak our recruitment strategy, and then we wait and see how it works, and then we tweak again until you've got the right strategy for the right type of role you're trying to fill. It's important that we're consistent across the entire funnel. And we talked about that a little bit beforehand, but if your brand is seen as innovative and creative, don't spoil it by having a cumbersome application process. If you're innovative and creative, you have an innovative and creative application process, or at least something sleek and quick. If you're walking the talk, people will understand that and they will start to follow, and you'll build a following so that next time you need to recruit somebody, you've already got some sort of pool going on to help the process along. All right. Any questions on how to build and establish the recruitment strategy before we move on to digital platforms and attracting talent?
Yes, Teresa. This is Ken.
Hi, Ken.
Do the tests, the pick, the disc, etc. Do they show reliability over cultural differences, like with foreign candidates?
As long as the candidates, I'm going to say, do they show reliability? So I'm sorry, what does that mean exactly?
Well, in terms of, are you going to get consistent results?
Oh, yes, because they are translated into other languages. So we do get consistent results around how the employee will perform. Yes.
So you could actually say, if a candidate, their native language is Mandarin, you could get the test sent to them in Mandarin?
Some of them, yes. I don't know about Mandarin specifically, but I know French, English, and Spanish.
Okay.
But many of these are worldwide. The thing that I would caution, though, is some cultures aren't about these tests, and that's why when you say Mandarin specifically, I don't know that I can answer that.
Yeah.
For the most part, yes. Also, when we're able sometimes to be able to, if we see that maybe we sent somebody an English test and there was some sort of discrepancy in what we saw versus what was on the test, sometimes it does come back to communication, but you're able to ask questions again. You know, just because they've done the test, it's not that you can't ask questions again, right? You can go back and ask questions if you see inconsistencies based on what you think you saw or heard during the interview.
Okay. And what about intelligent quotient, or sorry, not emotional quotient? Yeah.
So EI, there are tests. I didn't put the EI test on here, but there are definitely, I don't want to call them tests, assessments for EI as well. In fact, I have somebody in my office here who specializes in EI, and she will give assessments. She specializes in a particular type of EI assessment. So yes, you can get those. They're separate also. They're not, each of the tests sort of have a different focus. So the DISC is behaviors, right? The EI would be a separate type of test, just like if you want an IQ test, that would be a separate type of test. And the one that comes closest to that, though, out of the three of these would be the Profiles XT, because what I've shown you is just a snippet of what they measure. They measure much more than that. They measure a lot of things that are relative to, my favorite, truthfully, is the Profiles XT because of that, because you get, you know, verbal reasoning, so you get some cognitive ability in there, you get some psychological things in there, like personality things in there, and you get some emotional quotient in there. But if you want straight up EQ, there's another type of profiling tool for that as well.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. I'm just going to do a time check to make sure I'm on time. There we go. All right. So which digital platforms should business users use? That's what we're going to talk about next. So there are a lot of them. This is not even all of them. This is just a sampling that we could think of off the top of our head. So social media, your company website, trade associations, LinkedIn, Indeed, Night Hunter, Career Builders, ZipRecruiter, Campus Recruiting, co-op internships. You need to pick the ones that are aligned with your organization. So if you're a construction organization, you're going to want to go to, and you're hiring, let's say, a project coordinator, project manager, somebody for the trades, you would probably post on Fanshaw's website, and Fanshaw also has an alumni website. You would post someplace like that. You're not likely going to get your candidates from Night Hunter or something like that. You could go to your trade associations. Now, if you're hiring an HR person, you're definitely going to go to Night Hunter, and you're definitely going to go to LinkedIn. So you need to pick what's best for you when it comes to the digital platforms and where your audience is, where you're going to find the best candidates for your job. There are pros and cons. So social media recruiting in general, the really great thing about social media recruiting is it targets passive applicants. So if you're doing something on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, so for myself, for example, I'm on LinkedIn daily, and there are often people are talking about jobs that are out there, and they tweak my interest. Well, I'm not going to go look for a job, but I know that prior to starting this business, I would have looked at that. And yet I was not looking for a job, but it came up on my social media feed in LinkedIn, which is a great tool for hiring professionals. Generally, there's a high rate of return on your investment, if not in who you hire, but the exposure that you're getting out there. People that you hire from social media often have better performance on the job. We don't know why, it just is for some reason. Now, on the flip side of that, the potential for discriminatory hiring is much higher with social media. You can see their pictures. In North America, we discourage people from putting their pictures on their resumes. I often get pictures from overseas, resumes from overseas, and they have photos on them. You can discriminate based on photo. You can discriminate based on, inadvertently, I'm not saying you will discriminate, I'm saying inadvertently you could discriminate based on photos. Also, when we get resumes from overseas, we have people listing their health, their height, their weight, and their gender. Well, in Canada, in Ontario specifically, we are not allowed to use those factors to choose who's going to work for us next. So when you're social media recruiting, you're going to see all of that. So just be careful, or not careful, just be cognitive of the fact that that could actually happen. So those are sort of the pros and the cons that we see in social media recruiting. These are some of the other sites, Glassdoor, Indeed, Career Builder. So how do you use them? You post your job. Some of the sites, like these particular sites, Glassdoor, Career Builder, and Indeed, you can review the resumes on the site. You don't even have to have them come into your inbox. You can make notes on them on the site. You can search resumes. You can apply to their resumes. You can pay for the resume search tool, and rather than wait for resumes to come to you, you can search for the resumes. Out of my experience, I've not done that yet. Now, the advantage to that would be that you would find some passive career seekers, career job seekers, right? The people who aren't actually seeking, but you might, if you were to send them an email and say, hey, I've got this great job, looks like you're suited, they might actually come forward. Sometimes those are your best hires. They're already employed. They're not necessarily looking, so they're not going to jump for just anything, and you don't have to jump for just anything with them. You can make sure there's a really good match before you move forward. Company's career page is very important. Again, make sure that it's optimized for your website or for phone. We want the less number of clicks possible. So oftentimes what I see is the company will have their website, and then way at the very, very bottom under the address and everything, it says careers. Well, in today's day and age, you have to make it easier for job seekers to find your careers page. So generally, up on the top right, if you could have someplace to click for careers, that would be great. People do come to your website. They want to see what you're all about. They are reading. I'm finding candidates are reading websites thoroughly these days, which is also a change. It used to be they would glance. Now it seems they're reading them much more thoroughly. And they will ask questions based on what they see on your website, usually around culture. So what do your postings look like? Now this is where we get into the meat of things. Your postings need to be short and sweet. Your job description is a long document that talks about every single aspect of the job and who the responsibilities, where the reporting goes, and even maybe whether they're sitting, standing, walking, and lifting. You know what? That is not a job posting. People are not interested in all of that. You need to make it snappy to catch somebody's attention. Once you've got their attention and once you're talking to them, then feel free to send them a job description. But we need headings that are easy to read fonts. We need to shorten the distance of taps from your home page to your career page and make sure it's mobile optimized. Again, the new way of thinking and of being, and because of the way digital exposure has come to us, every single age group is experiencing this lack of attention. So you need to get somebody's attention right away. So if you're looking for a superstar receptionist, put that in your title. Looking for a superstar receptionist. Are you a superstar receptionist who wants to join our team versus seeking a receptionist? But again, whatever your title is, again, to be consistent, needs to reflect the culture of your company. So if you're not a company that's going to call somebody a superstar receptionist, please don't do that. Because then you're going to get somebody who, woo, I'm a superstar receptionist, I'm going to a superstar company. And your company may be a superstar company, but may not have that energy, that same energy behind it that you're reflecting in your job ad. So everything needs to be consistent. People are applying for jobs on their phones, so the application process needs to be mobile friendly. If there's an option simply to upload a resume instead of completing a field, please do. Just for interest's sake, before you launch anything like this, go to some huge company's website and go through the application process. They're terrible, they're cumbersome. I've tried it so many times and I've given up. It's best if you could just ask somebody to upload a PDF or a resume, especially for smaller organizations. Do you need a username and a password to access your online application process? That slows down the process. It turns people off. How long does a process take from start to finish? Oh my goodness. I went through one process 45 minutes in, I gave up. Allowing people, if you're a professional organization, to use your LinkedIn account as the application is great as well, as long as their LinkedIn, then there becomes an onus on the candidate to make sure that their LinkedIn profile is fleshed out. And then for larger organizations and even smaller organizations, we have applicant tracking systems. That's where you go online, you click the button, and it has you fill in your name and your phone number and your website, and your upload this, and they ask you a bunch of questions. The problem with them is that they can be cumbersome. The value to them is that they track everything for you. In order to understand if you want an applicant tracking system, you need to know what you want. You need to know what data you want to collect from these resumes. You need to know how you'd like to reach out to the candidates. You need to plan the messages, and you need to add a call to action and use imagery if you can. Consider the voice, so the tone. Review the approach. Ensure I don't want to say your project is measurable, but ensure that everything that comes through the applicant tracking system is measured to know whether you're using it well or not. Then you modify your trends and test and refine your strategy. And I'm going to get back to applicant tracking in just a second. I just realized this slide might be out of sequence. Your mobile-friendly career website. I don't know if you can see this, but on the left-hand side, the text is too small. There's too much text. It's finicky. The boxes are tiny. If you look, excuse me, on the right-hand side, the text is a lot bigger. The links are not too close together. The mobile viewpoint is set, has compatible plugins if you need them. You know, you click on call us and it'll call you directly versus the non-friendly on the left. You have to find the phone number, probably have to type it in. So there are differences that you need to be looking at. That's what I mean by a mobile-friendly career site. Okay, before we go to where should I post it, I want to get to applicant tracking systems for a minute. There are applicant tracking systems that are suitable for smaller business. The one that comes to mind initially is Zoho, Z-O-H-O. Zoho is not as user-friendly as I'd like, but it certainly tracks absolutely everything that you need to track. Zoho as a company has modules, many of them free for virtually anything you want to run in your small business, from customer relationship management to project management. They're amazing. If you only have 3 users, they're free forever. So I would highly recommend checking out Zoho. There's another one called Fresh Sales. There's basic unlimited users with basic content management. But then there are different plans as the complexity of what you're doing moves up. HubSpot works, and there's a number of them that you want to be looking at during this process. All right, so I want to make sure we keep on time here. So where do you post? That's a good question. You would have to determine for you which are the best sites to post on. I don't think we're going to do this little activity here because this is more of a webinar than a workshop. Going back to where do you post? We talked throughout this posting piece, that you find the software, you find the digital platform, you find the sites that are most relevant to you. Maybe you're going to post, like I said, on your career site. Maybe you're going to post on a site with a Fanshawe alumni site. Perhaps you're going to post who knows where, but just take some time to think about it, and maybe for yourself write out why you think you might want to post there so that you have that information handy. All right, what goes into retaining an employee within a digital work environment? Flexibility is the absolute first thing. We need to be driving digital maturity with our employees, and digital maturity is not at the employee level, but it's at the employer level. So now that we're into a digital workforce, we need to make sure that our processes, the tools that we provide to the employees are digital. Micro-learning is something that's new on the horizon. It's providing employees with the ability to learn in small chunks of time. And then offering professional certifications online, because when we're retaining employees within a digital work environment, these employees still need to be learning and advancing, and we need to increase their job satisfaction. Providing transferable qualifications, so again, just helping them update their skill sets electronically. And then how to attract people, period, right? So there's the digital maturity that we talked about. So employees want to work for companies that allow them to develop and demonstrate the skills and abilities they need to succeed. Digital strategies in most mature organizations are developed with an emphasis on transforming the business through targeted improvements. However, digital strategies in most startups and small companies are not at the same level that they are in the mature organizations. Now, the advantage to that is that smaller companies can turn on a dime and provide their employees with innovative digital experiences for a lot less money, a lot of the times being free. Micro-learning, we talked about. Keeping on top of emerging industry trends. So in the world of digital, the digital space is changing so rapidly that we need to make sure that we are providing the tools to our employees to help them upskill on a regular basis, to stay ahead of, or at least abreast of, the new strategies and technologies that are out there. So again, if you're using Facebook as a recruitment strategy, if you're using Facebook as a communication tool, if you're using Facebook as a customer branding tool, an employee branding tool, maybe you should allow your employees time on Facebook, and they can actually help rather than hinder. I want to put a caveat there though and say that if you're going to do that, you need to make sure that your policy around Facebook usage is tight in your employee policy manual. Very, very tight. Organizations with higher levels of engagement have 22% higher productivity. So how do you drive engagement in the organization? Well, really the best way is to make sure that your team feels valued. That is the best way to drive engagement and to drive productivity. And how do you do that? You talk with them regularly. You make sure they understand what the goals are of your organization, and so that they can align to them. You make sure that they have goals that they feel are of great value and use to the organization. And this can be done at every level of the organization. This is not just for managers, not at all. If you've got somebody working on a line someplace and they understand that if they churn out X number of parts, that's going to lead to the organization having this much revenue and this much profitability, and then we can, they can reinvest it back in the organization and the employee gets a bonus, whatever that looks like for your organization. So 5 ways to strengthen your company culture. You want to embolden the culture. And what I mean by embolden, that's a really cool word. What I mean by that is providing the employees the latitude, the ability, and the desire. You want them to have the desire to be consistent with your culture and to help create the culture as you move along. And then being consistent, relevant, mobile, and honest are the foundational pieces to creating that culture that drives engagement and allows and drives employees and candidates to come work for you. So what happens too when you have candidates in your organization, we have employees in your organization, they talk. And you know you have a good organization when your employees are out there referring you as an employer. There we go. So we've gone through the crux of how to be relative in the digital age through COVID-19 and beyond. Do we have any other questions? Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and turn control back over to Todd. Here we go. Todd, are you there? Todd, you're muted. There we go. Now I'll mute myself.
Okay. No, perfect. Thanks, Therese. And I think we can open it up for questions if there is any. Feel free to either go live video or voice and express your questions or concerns. Look like we have or use text, or if you're not comfortable with that, we'd open it up. But I think appreciate the presentation for sure, Therese, and as I was making notes here, and I think we covered off a lot of different bases, and I think you gave a really good some of the takeaways for me is just sort of a lot of the recruitment kind of strategies is also the way I think a lot of people are engaging in the social media and personalizing it, right? And it sort of made me think about the recruitment and sort of the feedback is like you have to make it applicant friendly, personalized, and tailored, right, to what you're trying to do. And from a recruitment standpoint, but also I think your presentation gave a lot of good insights into how to better make sure that you're engaging your employees in terms of retention, right, and ensuring that they're feel like they're engaged in the whole process and sharing those information. So Ken has a question. Ken, do you want to join us on video or voice? Either way.
Hello, Therese again. You talked earlier about the sticking to the hiring timeline. I've seen some job postings where they posted in September and they're closing in November. Is that too long a time? And also, how appropriate is it for an employer to then, when they feel they have the ideal candidate, or should they be checking through finding that ideal candidate partway through and then possibly closing it? What's your thought on that?
Yeah, so that's a long timeline. That's a very long time to keep a job open. I don't recommend more than 3 weeks, quite frankly. And even in today's environment, 3 weeks is a long time. But you can keep the job open for 3 weeks just so that, when people you're going to miss some people, right? Like you don't know when people are coming on board. So you want to keep it open for a fairly significant length of time. I usually start 5 days in. 5 days in, I'm scanning all resumes already at the latest, because candidates who are applying, if they are active job seekers and you're looking at, if you wait to the end of the open process, they're going to be gone, right? If they're active job seekers. So you may lose someone good over just that timeline. So you can keep the job open that long, but certainly don't leave your screening for that long. And when you have a candidate, that's why I like the phone screen process, because we screen after 5 days. And then if I have candidates that I think are going to be good, I do the phone screens right away. When we do the phone screens right away, we have an idea of what the candidate pool looks like. And if I do 5 phone screens and it turns out that none of the candidates are who I was thinking I'd like to hire, then I still have time until the application process closes. But if I have somebody really good, I will move them through the system, and then hopefully somebody else good will come along. One of the roles I'm recruiting for right now, the employer insisted we wait till the end. So we held it open for a month. We waited to the end because that's their process. And a month later, we have no viable candidates and we have to start all over again. Did I answer your questions, Ken?
Yes, certainly. And then also, I see also, as you talked earlier, about refining things. So if you find that your scans, you're scanning after 5 days and your phone screens, if you're getting the wrong kind of candidates, you might want to adjust your job description, your posting.
Correct. Don't adjust the job description. The job description is completely different than the posting, but definitely adjust the posting, because you're clearly, we must have done something in that case where we weren't we did not attract, we weren't in the right mindset of the person we were trying to attract, right? So we've gone back and we have changed the posting just like that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there any other questions at this point? Well, we have Therese on the line. Okay, I'm seeing no further questions in the chat. I'll just double check here, Therese, but and no one has their hand raised as a participant, so we've ruled out those two things. But again, definitely want to thank you for your time and pulling together this presentation. And I guess the follow up for this will be that we'll be looking to, we did record, and so we'll make this presentation available through both our website and our social media channels, and definitely look forward to the continued relationship that we have around, you know, the partnership that we have around the HR component with you, and always enjoy an opportunity to catch up.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Todd. I really appreciate being here. Like I said, anytime I can help, let me know.
Appreciate it, Therese. All right, thank you, everyone, and stay tuned for further workshops. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. Bye now.